It was a tough day for CONCACAF teams on the pitch at the U17s FIFA Men's World Cup. But also, we got some interesting results overall. It's U17s, which means there's lots to talk about, lots of surprises. Everyone's has a first impression opportunity. And we're here to talk about it here, guys. Welcome to the African channel. We do primarily Canadian and African content, but because it's a World Cup and it's such a different format and all the games are at the same time, basically, we might as well are doing a recap. So we started yesterday. If you haven't watched already, go into our description. I did a quick recap of the games yesterday that happened, as well as the women's under 17s. We talked about their quarterfinal matchups, and we will have a recap for the women's under 17s semifinals when they come around. But today we're talking about what happened on day 2 of this newly formatted for the next 5 years men's under 17 World Cup. We had a few more groups getting going, 4 more groups played, 8 matchups today, all happening in the morning for where I was. We're in Canada here. And we're here to talk about it. So if you like Canadian content, if you like African content, or you like the random person you just discovered who does quick recaps of events that you are watching and enjoying, make sure you leave a comment who stood out to you, which teams you're supporting. More importantly, I want to know who are your favorite players that you want me to keep an eye out so that we know them before they got big, that underground band mentality of we saw them before they got big. Who are the players you're excited to see? Let me know in the comments below, and we will talk about them as they come through. Already have a couple people here already. Chorus, it's great to see you here. Always happy. Hope all is well. We are thinking about our subscribers having natural disasters, some conflicts around the world. We're thinking about you in all the ways and finding ways that we can give back. And even if it's just tuning in and watching at a tournament, which is just a bunch of kids kicking a ball, I'll do my best to give you a bit of a relief from that situation from where you are. But let's get into what we have here within this game. And really, let's talk about where the groups are currently. So the first 4 groups got going yesterday. If you weren't sure, South Africa and Italy got their wins over Qatar and Bolivia, respectfully. Group B, Japan and Portugal got wins over Morocco and New Caledonia. Group C was nothing but draws between Costa Rica, United Arab Emirates, Croatia, and Senegal. And Group D had Tunisia and Argentina getting wins, while Belgium and Fiji fell. Just a reminder, the top 2 teams in every group, plus the top 8 of the best third place teams, will move on to the round of 32. The reason why I'm following this very much closely is because this is going to very much it's very much going to mimic what we're going to see, maybe not as intensive of games of the men's World Cup coming this summer. So getting used to talking about a lot of games in one day is something I really want to try to do, and that's why we're going to take a look at that. It's never coming home. I think that was one of the surprise results of today, but we'll get to that as we move forward. So today we had Group E getting going with Egypt, Venezuela, Haiti, and England. We had Group F with Switzerland, South Korea, Mexico, and Cote d'Ivoire. Group G with North Korea, Colombia, Germany, El Salvador. And Group H with Brazil, Zambia, Indonesia, and Honduras. And as the title says, it was a tough day for CONCACAF teams. It was very much not the results we were hoping for them. I know some of you in the Caribbean were hoping Haiti would carry the flag. I even took a step. I thought they had a chance to beat Egypt. I think I have to stop underestimating a solid defensive side. And that Egypt game was very interesting. So I try to watch as many of the games as we can because they are all on 30 minutes to 45-minute increments. Today at work, it turned into just 3 games on one screen, kind of watching and seeing things and then moving from there. But we'll kind of take a look at what we saw there. I do want to start off with that Egypt versus Haiti game, because I think there was a very interesting lesson when it comes to this. Egypt is a team pragmatic, always solid defensively. They get the 4-1 victory over Haiti. And there was one thing that you noticed especially when it started with this game. So Egypt with 4 goals, 3 in the first, and then 1 in the second half. You had Atia scoring, Zogibi scoring, and then Nikolai Olie Pierre scores for Haiti, making it 2-1, before Hamza and Omar score in the 27th and 72nd minute to make it 4-2. One of the things I do want to point out with, and I was looking through SofaScore, by no means am I sponsored by them, but they're just easy to follow. The one thing I just noticed, especially when you look at where players were, the pinching up of their fullbacks was getting Haiti into trouble all the time. If you look at where the average space of the players was, right, there's your left back, there's your right back, or right back and left back, or right back and left back. Whenever this player, and he was pinching a lot, he would get caught. And then that would spring whenever they could. When you get to this level, the first thing is if your passing isn't on point, then you're going to give up a lot of transition. And Haiti, with their back four, pushing their fullbacks up, passing was not solid in the midfield. And what that created was a lot of odd man rushes, a lot of transition opportunities, and Egypt took full advantage of that. If you look at that, if we look at Haiti's second fullback, again, moving, marauding up in the pitch. And yes, for the most part, we see that they spent a lot of time pinned back, but all the space here opened up the field for Egypt when they were moving up the pitch and down the pitch. And as you can see that with Egypt's fullbacks as well, they were able to help out in their midfield. And what that creates was a lot of opportunities, a lot of battling that was happening within the middle, which created more opportunities to score. And that's kind of what it looked like. And I think that's something you have to keep in mind. These are young players who maybe you may not be as familiar with them. It's going to be the interesting thing watching U17s year in and year out for the next 4 years. How do countries want to approach it? Do they want to keep a group together, have them build cohesion, or are you trying to find your best players and hoping that the football IQ is just all spoken by everyone? You're going to have different players in different areas, and I think you're going to see creatively what players are able to do at that level. But I was looking forward to see a little bit more from what Haiti gave me in this game, and ultimately, this is where it ends up for them. When your player of the match is your goalkeeper, it does speak to how overrun you were. And if we look at the attacking momentum charts here, it's the same thing. Egypt scoring early, as we saw, scored in the 3rd minute, then the 11th minute. It was Haiti under siege. Haiti was able to build back up when they scored in the 20th minute, but then quickly after that, it's 3-1. They had a good spell to start the first half. Haiti did, but then eventually just couldn't take the realm of the game. And it ends with Egypt getting the win. African teams today definitely had the better performances, though they did have moments. We'll talk about Cote d'Ivoire a little bit later. But looking at these stats here, big chances Egypt more versus overall Haiti. 9 goalkeeper saves for Haiti. That speaks to how under siege they were. A number of passes. Haiti had more passes, but Egypt, pragmatic team. And you saw that from them in their qualifying round. You saw the same thing with Tunisia, which we'll talk about later as well. Solid defensive sides who, if you spring them on the counter, that is where their bread and butter is. That is where they will be dominant. And if you aren't careful, a simple game turns 2-0 before you can blink. And that's where it kind of went. And so for Egypt, a solid performance overall. Top of the group, because there's so many teams moving, secure your points early so you have a little bit of room to maneuver. That's going to be very important as you move through. And that's what I'm loving what we're seeing with the teams as they came through. Brazil doing Brazil things. We'll get to our other CONCACAF sides who did not have the best of days today. As we transition over to Brazil versus Honduras, 7-0 is the score in this game. And quite frankly, it wasn't that close. It really wasn't that close. And when your average rating for one side is 7.5 and the other is 6.9 rounding up, that speaks to the domination that is happening on this side. And it was just tough for Honduras to really get their footing in anything that they were doing in this game. Fully one-sided in terms of the game. I saw even before we came on, highlight package of goals of the day. 3 of them were just Brazilian goals just moving through. Look at this flow. Honduras had a few spells to start the first half and then just get to the second half. But other than that, it was just Brazil, Brazil, Brazil. And did I mention Brazil? Like average movement, looking at players moving down, mostly in the Honduran half. If you look at this again, off sofa score, your fullbacks were basically playing as wingers for Brazil, midfielders at best. Whereas for Honduras, it was nearly 10 players, 11 players behind the ball, just defending. A few opportunities to get up, but for the most part, their attacking players were trying to give support in the midfield as little as they could do. You saw all the goals coming through. Again, man of the match here is Candido for Brazil, the fullback who probably had a range to move over. And to give you an idea of what type of a game this was, I mean, let's take a look at the statistics. 71 to 29 in terms of possession, 20 total shots, no goalkeeper saves for Brazil, which kind of speaks to, yes, Honduras has 6 shots, but 3 goal saves from there. 442 passes versus 177. Again, that tells you everything. The yellow cards are something you're going to want to keep an eye on because you are looking to have players available as you move. Shots on target. Half of the Brazilian shots were on frame, which means you had some block shots coming off as well. That speaks to just how dominant this group from Brazil was. And again, when you're looking and talking about Brazil, a little bit of it is you were looking at it, and it was a little bit more of the idea of just you were hoping that they could work a little bit better, but Brazil was Brazil. And sometimes, you live up to the name. And when you see a branding of a name, regardless of how strong or how soft or how weak a team can be, it's always going to be what you put on the pitch. And for Brazil, they worked this Honduran side. And the goal difference is going to matter a lot because they're re-ranking. So even if you lose your first game, like we said yesterday, keeping it close will do you wonders, will do you lots of wonders. But Honduras weren't able to do that. Brazil doing their best to give themselves the space that they need so that they can move on to the next round. Love that from them. Unfortunately, to the it's unfortunate that it had to be Honduras that had it happen to them, but that is just the name of the game, how it goes. The other CONCACAF side that maybe had the better of the days, only falling 2-1. And man, it's a tough game for Korea. I think this was probably one of the more even games coming through. And South Korea getting past Mexico's U17 by a score of 2-1. Ian Nam get the game winner, and that whole sequence was just tough. You're a goalkeeper, you're trying to get a long ball clear, you misjudge it, misplay it. Ball is played in. Ian Nam is able to head it in off of a good cross, and it's 2-1. That's your game winner at the beginning of the second half. Mexico definitely were more on the possession of this game, but unfortunately for them, unable to truly get opportunities. Player of the match here, according to SofaScore, is Gael Garcia. Solid name, but then Ian Nam gets the goal in the first half, and then the center back gets the goal in a lot of early goals. 19th minute goal for Korea, while Aldo de Nigris scores in the 44th to tie it up, giving Mexico a little bit of hope and pushing. If you're looking at where this game is, this definitely was a Mexican possession type game. I always like to look at the fullbacks as a good indicator and how high they were. They were definitely pushing for that equalizer, but also to get in front as you take a look at what those two players were able to do. But with South Korea, timely goals off timely mistakes, and that gets the win for them. You take a look at some of the statistics that come through this game. Possession was again on Mexico's side. And if you look at the momentum of the game, once Korea gets the goal, they're holding strong, but then Mexico takes over with that 388 passes to 304. Big chances. Mexico has 5 versus 2, 17 shots versus 8. More goals saved. Goalkeeper saves for South Korea versus Mexico. 8 shots on target versus 5. 1 on the woodwork. 2 block shots each. A 2-1 result isn't the worst case scenario for Mexico. It's a loss you would have hoped if they were them, they would get at least a draw, if not the win. But hey, they're not in a bad spot, and that's the key thing. You don't want to bury your chances right off the bat because third place is going to be a lifeline for a lot of these teams. We saw this, and we're seeing this in U17s. Just making it to the knockout stages gives you a chance to move on, and we'll kind of what they look like from there. Oof. Let's go to some of these comments here. Haiti was outplayed. He'll be here when he's here, so don't worry about that. But no, Haiti definitely were outplayed. Too offensive. And it's funny when you watch teams and you start to see, hey, you see the similarities within how their senior team plays versus how some of the young players are playing. And it's the same, just, okay, there's talent, but can you put it together all? That's what we wait to see. Fiji and New Caledonia better than Honduras. They didn't play the teams they played, so we'll definitely have to wait and see to see what that looks like. That was a tough day for CONCACAF teams. We'll get to the games, but let's go on and recap a few more that happened already. I think one of the surprising results based off of title, but again, this is U17. You aren't promised anything. You want your senior sides, that is for sure. Actually, let's finish with CONCACAF sides here. We're going to Group G here. North Korea emphatically over El Salvador. And in this game, I don't think El Salvador were necessarily bad, but I just think South Korea my apologies. North Korea were just the more dominant side. You can't get away with trying to be defensive as long as you can when you give up that position and try to get the counter. That's the drawback of it. If you are going to try to play in a counter way, you better be fruitful with your opportunities. And when you have no opportunities, and I'm going to say that again, no opportunities. This is a sad day for me in this game. 47 touches in the opposition box for North Korea versus 8 for El Salvador. There was just no attacking football available. There was no bite. There was no even threat of a bite. And that's tough for these players. They defended as well as they could. Within them, that's what helped them get over to the next stage. But look at these, like 9 big chances, 26 total shots for North Korea, 10 goalkeeper saves for El Salvador versus 5 for North Korea. They had a few chances, but it seems like no touches in the box were a lot of long shots, edge of the box movements. We always like to take a look, and we'll touch a little bit later. But shots on target, 5 for El Salvador, 15 for North Korea. That is definitely the number. Shots inside the box, 17 to 3. Shots outside, 5 to 9. That makes sense. A lot of block shots coming through here. That kind of shows where you are. Duels, North Korean as well. They were the more aggressive and more proactive side, getting their 5 goals. A penalty at the end of the first half, 1 goal early, and then 3 to finish off the game. North Korea at the youth level. Tell me where you've heard this before. That's just the reality. North Korean side at the youth level performing up to par. Tell me again where you've heard that before. So for El Salvador, not the greatest opening for them, but they still have the opportunity to move, and we'll see. But that 5 spot is going to be difficult to overcome, I think, coming through for some of the other opportunities. We talked about other teams shining well. Indonesia falling to Zambia. Oh, what is it? The little copperheads, the copper cadets. I don't know what the name is. Zambian fans, let me know. They get past Indonesia again. upset upset alert was on early. Mohamed Goli scores in the 12th minute for Indonesia, but then Mwale as well as Nyargo scoring in the 37th, 35th, and 41st minute. That came just in waves. And the first half then was just taken over by Zambia. Player of the game is Kelvin Chipelu, uh, outside midfielder coming up forward, providing a lot of support. 2 goals for him, or 2 assists for him, rather. And in this game, we always like to look, touch the chart. Kevin scrolling, making sure we got him. 21. What were you doing, 21? All over, pushing forward. Well done. You're 9, always in attacking positions, defenders, very much spaced out where they were. Indonesia, it felt like they were doing their best and got some opportunities, no doubt, in that second half. Well, that first half is what did it. That first half is certainly what did it for them. Especially you just want to compare where the nines were, right? A few opportunities to defend, but for for Abel, wow, I just called him Abel. Maybe it's Abel, maybe it's Abel, but for Abel, who gets look at his movement and where he's getting the ball versus where Indonesia's 9 is. That just kind of speaks to where the game was played in different stretches, and that's all right. Again, for Zambia, you get the 3 points. You look good in doing so. That is certainly what you're happy to see. When we move forward, let's take a look at more of the stats from this game. We have 59 versus 41 possession for Zambia, certainly on the front foot. 14 total shots to 7. That speaks to a little bit more of that. 7 corners versus 1. 10 fouls, nearly 400 passes, near 300 passes. Not bad for them. Then we're looking at shots overall. 6 on target. You have 4 versus 4 Indonesia. 1 post or 1 woodwork. Shots off target, 7 as well. 1 shot blocked. 9 shots outside of the box. Not afraid to let it rip. Certainly not afraid to let it rip. And you see that a lot with some of the African sides. By no means is that a indictment. That's just a little bit more of them. But Zambia getting the save. Big claims, high claims. Doing well. 9 goal kicks versus 12 for Indonesia. Speaking to how, whether it's be bad passes or movements from there, certainly something to keep an eye on from where we were going. Other matchups that came through today. We might as well just emotionally prepare ourselves for Switzerland going through Cote d'Ivoire 4-1. More of a comprehensive game to me. Certainly much more of a comprehensive game to me. Yao scoring in the Hubert for Cote d'Ivoire in the 81st minute. Otherwise, it was just Switzerland, whether it was Zufries, whether it was Lux, whether it was Coloto, whether it was Steele. 4-1 overall. Player for the match is Gilles Zufri. If I said that wrong, I'm sorry, Joe. Gil, my apologies. We run from there. This game just felt like this one is one I wasn't able to watch, to be honest. So we're going to rely a lot on what we're seeing from the stats here. And when we take a look at Cote d'Ivoire versus what Switzerland was able to do, looking where players were for the majority of the game, heat map showing a little bit in terms of what players were doing. And doesn't look like it was too bad of the game. Looks like it was more evenly matched, but it was a tale of halves. Switzerland in the first half had more of the possession and the dominance and the attacking momentum. But then, second half, they had the lead. So Cote d'Ivoire was definitely pushing, but unable to break their deadlock until the 81st minute. We take a look at some of the other statistics which come to this game. Let's get that loaded up here. Again, guys, if you're here, we're going to be here every day. Won't just be me, but we're just going to do our best to give you a breakdown of what happened statistically and just some of our thoughts on the games. pretty even from possession is, but we can see that with the attacking momentum where it kind of looks that way. I think the key thing to look at is just overall shots, right? And just where your big chances were. And when you take a look at that, Switzerland with 3 big chances versus none for none for Cote d'Ivoire. And that is effectively the story of the game, right? 8 shots on target versus 5, 1 off the woodwork. 11 shots off target. Just felt you were just trying to get shots and frame to get back into the game. Maybe one big shot opens the opportunity for you. Outside of the box shots, 12 versus inside the box shots, 11. I think that's the key. Get the ball to dangerous spots or cross the ball into dangerous spots and create a little bit more chaos in chaotic situations where they can win some of those bounces and kind of move from there. Passes again in favor of Switzerland, though not by too much. Final third entry, 61 versus 51. You see that in the flow of the game and how it went. 12 goal kicks versus 2, just speaking to a lot more of how much it felt better that some teams were playing versus the others. We jumped from there to Germany versus Colombia. That game started quick. I barely had the stream loaded, and Germany was already up 1-0. But then halftime came, and then Colombia equalizes. Juan Jose Catano in the 57th minute after Tony Langsteiner scores in the first minute. It's 1-1. Very much an even game. Again, a battle of two halves, though Colombia's ebbs were a little bit higher. Germany definitely had opportunities to see this game through. Average score about the same for both players. If you look at, again, I always like to take a look at fullbacks and the likes when you're looking at Germany here, fullbacks ranging up in terms of the space, but then that also gives you an idea of where players could attack. And you see that with Colombia trying to take advantage of the over pushing too high up to pitch, pinching behind, taking that opportunity. I think this was probably one of the more even games that you would have seen in this day 2 of the competition. Throwing a few more statistics out there for you. Ball possession, 54-46. Not too bad in terms of even working. Even look at the shot map for Germany here. A lot within 5 shots within the box, 3 outside. Whereas Colombia, peppering everything outside the box. Couldn't get too good. I thought Germany did a good job of being defensively solid there. But again, I think a game, a battle of who could push forward and take advantage of space that was there. I think you see this with Colombia trying just to get themselves back into the game in terms of what's going on. But I think it was definitely an even match for what we saw. Touches inside the opponent's box, 18-14, both dangerous, but not able to truly push through and get those results. Shots on target 11-7. I mean, total shots 11-8. On target 4-2. Woodwork, block shots inside the box versus outside the box, 5 for Germany. A lot more dangerous, a lot more stressful situations. Whereas you have Colombia, who were able to get a few outside. Solid game. I think a draw was fair for this matchup. No doubt about it for where we were going. Then we get to a few of the last results. I think the most surprising result for some, but again, I say this is U18. I mean, U17. Nothing should surprise you. At the U17 level, nothing should surprise you because, as they said years ago, in the club, we're all fam. A lot closer in ability. But here, it's just which players can make those extra moments, those special moments to differentiate. And here, I think for some people looking and saying, ooh, England fell to Venezuela. I'm not. If you look at how this game was moving, yes, for me, watching this game, the longer the game went, the least surprised I was with the result. Just England weren't able to put it together in the final third. They had opportunities, but they just couldn't find that goal piece. As you can see, we're gonna swap set up here. We're still here, and there we go. That was weird. Won't lie. But as we were saying, when it comes to this level, no result should really surprise you. To me, when I look at U17s, you always want to see which players are progressing well, because I mean that's usually the age for it. But again, as in watching this game, the longer it went, the least surprised I was with the result. Just England weren't able to get anything with bite on the frame, and so losing 3-0, I think actually was very much a fair result. I'm not sure what you guys thought about that coming through with it, but I think it was much more of a fair result just based off how they weren't able to get anything dangerous on frame, really. And if you take a look, even just this was very much dominated by England. First half, you look at the momentum here, all that, but in the moments, Venezuela was far more dangerous, and in doing so, they're able to get the 3-0 victory, which might be a bit of a surprising result. CONMEBOL teams have been performing well. Argentina, game of the day yesterday. Brazil, walking through everyone else, that being Honduras. You saw Colombia drawing today. Bolivia really was maybe the only side that had a struggle, but they looked decent against South Africa. So for them, I think, again, a little bit of time to look through, a little bit more. There was moments in that game where you saw maybe midfielders and wingers weren't on the same page, a few wasted passes that result in goal kicks because both attacking players are on the same pitch. Don't get me wrong, they were still good, but they just didn't have that bite in the end. And I think that ultimately leaves them to where they were. And so you have that as a result. And so to recap everything and bring everything back into perspective, you have Group E today, Egypt over Haiti, and then Venezuela over England. So both 3-point winners are on +3. In Group F, Switzerland over Cote d'Ivoire, and then South Korea over Mexico. In Group G, North Korea over El Salvador, and Colombia drawing Germany. That draw is going to go a long way. And then Zambia and Brazil, big wins over Indonesia and Honduras, which leaves us to tomorrow, which is the last match day ones for the other groups. The last 4 groups get going. And in doing so, you have Group I, where you're going to have Burkina Faso versus the USA, and then Czechia versus Tajikistan. In Group J, you're going to have Panama versus Ireland, and then Paraguay versus Uzbekistan. In Group K, you're going to have Canada versus Uganda. Uganda, I didn't realize this, but I saw this stat. It's the first World Cup Uganda has made at any level. So congratulations to the baby cranes. I know they're going to be playing with a lot of pride. And just because it's your first time here doesn't mean you can't leave an impression. So I hope the Canadians are ready for that. And then you have France versus Chile. And then you have Group L, where you're going to have New Zealand versus Mali, and then Austria versus Saudi Arabia. Those are your games for tomorrow. If you're in Canada, wondering when those start times are going to be, in the Eastern Standard Time where I'm recording, that's 7:30 a.m. It's 8 hours difference for there. So plus 8 hours, and you'll see kind of what time those games get going. The first game of the game is Czechia versus Tajikistan, followed with Panama and Ireland starting at the same time. Half hour after that, Paraguay gets going with Uzbekistan. And half hour after that, Austria versus Saudi Arabia. Mali versus New Zealand gets going an hour after that, an hour plus from that. And then a half hour after that, USA versus Burkina Faso. And then the last 2 matchups of the day are Canada versus Uganda and France versus Chile. Those are the matchups. That has been the recap. Guys, let me know who you're excited to see, who has stood out to you. We'll definitely, after this finishes, we'll have a team of the match day one SofaScore. We'll have that and we'll talk about if we agree with it. I know tomorrow for the Canadian game on the rise should be with us, as well as maybe a few more names to talk about the results that have come through. So, guys, make sure you hop on in. Again, it won't be just me for these recaps. It's a lot of work to go through, but we're going to cover this as best as we can. Thank you for being with me today on this 40-minute recap. I appreciate you who stuck around for all of this. And as always, I'm just going to stop talking.